Good morning or good afternoon or even good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Len Herstein. I'm the CEO of Manage Camp Inc., the producers of the Brand Manage Camp Conference, and I want to welcome you all to today's webcast. And just want to let you know that this is something that we do fairly frequently, at least once a month or so, and it's a byproduct of the fact that when we put together our conference, we've got so many more topics to cover than we have time for in the 2 days of Brand Manage Camp. And so we love doing these to provide more value to the audience and get more information out there. And so I definitely appreciate you taking the time this morning to join us. A couple of quick housekeeping things before we get started. First of all, for those of you who are not aware of the Brand Manage Camp Conference, that will be held this year, October 1st and 2nd in Las Vegas again at the Mirage Hotel. We're really excited. In the next few weeks, you're going to be hearing a lot more about that as we announce the speaker lineup and get the website up and running. But we've got an amazing list of speakers all lined up. People like Scott Stratton, the best-selling author of Unmarketing, Rohit Bhargava, who wrote Likeonomics, Ted Rubin on a subject called Return on Relationship. We got Joseph Jaffe and Joe Pulizzi on content marketing. We're covering storytelling and creativity and how to handle risk and constraints and all sorts of really cool topics. So if you haven't checked out Brand Manage Camp, you can go to brandmanagecamp.com. Right now it still shows the details from last year, and you can watch a video highlight reel from last year, and in the next few weeks we'll have that all updated. So hope to see you all there in October. And just so you know, when we do get that up and running, we'll be running a promotion for the first couple of months for the first 100 registrants before the beginning of May. You'll actually get your 2 nights at the Mirage Hotel for free, included in your registration. So it's a great promotion, and that always fills up. So if you're interested, that's something definitely take advantage of. But today, we're here to talk about our webinar, which is called How the Why of Net Promoter Score Unlocks Its True Potential. We've got 2 fantastic presenters, Adriana Smith of Reliant Energy and Lisa Wall of iModerate. As a brand strategy manager at NRG, Adriana works to bridge the gap between consumers and the NRG brand. Prior to her current role, she worked in market research and consumer insights. And as project director at iModerate, a great partner of ours, Lisa manages projects from kickoff to completion. And before joining iModerate, she led the design and implementation of Waste Management's Voice of the Customer program. And today we're here to talk about something really cool, which is Net Promoter Score, but more importantly, how to unlock its true potential. And we all know that Net Promoter Score is a useful tool to track consumer advocacy over time. But what many people don't know is that studies over time have proven that increases in Net Promoter Score correlate directly to significant revenue growth and market share. And in fact, there's even a stronger correlation between reducing detractors of your brand and increasing revenue. And so it's crucial for us to understand and optimize our customer experiences in order to attract and retain brand promoters while minimizing brand detractors. But even with all the information available to us as marketers, it's challenging to determine how to nurture advocates and improve experiences and do that efficiently and effectively. So, as it turns out, the scores are important, but the context behind them is what's critical to success. And so today we're going to learn how this deeper understanding that the folks at iModerate and Reliant Energy have gained behind their Net Promoter Score using an innovative solution called Emerge Analytics. And we're going to gain insights into how we can make more sense of our consumer commentary, ranging from survey verbatim to social to product reviews and much more. And so I'm really excited and just really excited to get it all kicked off. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Adriana and Lisa. But first, just want to make you aware that if you have questions along the way, there's a questions button. You can submit those along the way, and we will field them as we go, as well as at the end. If you can include your name and contact information in that as well, we can make sure any questions we don't get to by the end, we follow up with you directly afterwards. The slides will be available as well afterwards. In fact, the entire webcast will be archived and available on demand through brandmanagecamp.com/webcast. So within 5 minutes after this, if you have other people on your team or if you wanted to look back and see things, again, you can absolutely get that on demand. So with that, I will hand it over to Adriana and Lisa, and enjoy.
Great. Well, thanks, Len, for that introduction. Like you said, we're here really to talk about Net Promoter Score, but even more fundamentally, the customer experience. It's a topic that has always been important and for some organizations a part of their mantra for years. But as as consumers today are becoming increasingly more connected and savvy, we're seeing and hearing companies really elevate the customer experience as a priority within their organization. So much so that a recent Gartner survey reports that by the year 2016, nearly 90% of companies are expecting to compete primarily on the basis of the customer experience. So why is the customer experience so important? Len touched on that already, but because we know that through consistently delivering positive experiences at every touch point along the customer journey, it really yields higher customer satisfaction, decreases customer churn, all of which at the end of the day leads to increased revenue. And according to the loyalty effect, companies with the highest customer experience typically grow at more than double the rate of their competitors.
And for us at Reliant, customer experience is really table stakes and something our customers have grown to expect. Today we'll discuss how Reliant has leveraged iModerate's Emerge analytics solution to understand and improve the experience of our customers in an effort to really repeat those positive experiences and minimize negative experiences. And we found that there's clear ROI in working to understand our customers' experiences, and we have the answers in all of the consumers' constant feedback through social posts, online forums, product reviews, survey verbatims, and lots of other consumer commentary. So I've been at Reliant for 7 years, and over that time, my role has changed quite a bit. I began in market research, doing everything from focus groups to brand tracking surveys to product research. But I've now transitioned to brand strategy. So I'm no longer gathering the voice of the customer, but now it's really about understanding how the customer's voice impacts the Reliant brand. So Reliant's a retail electricity provider, and for anyone not from Texas, our electricity is deregulated, meaning you have a choice. So in most states, you pay the local utility and that's it. Well, in Texas, there's over 100 registered providers selling electricity, so competition is fierce. Reliant has 1.6 million residential customers, so we're one of the bigger players. And in early 2014, the president of Reliant announced her company goals. And as you would expect, most of them were about improving customer count and making money for our shareholders. But she added a new one, and this was all about putting the customer first. She decided this goal was so important that she created a special task force to figure out how could Reliant do this. So as a member of that task force, I'm trying to answer the question, how can Reliant become a company that didn't just provide good customer service, but rather a company like Amazon that puts the customer first in everything we do? So as the task force thought about this, we realized it was really all about repeating those positive moments and minimizing the negative moments with our customers. We explored lots of options and decided that NPS would be a great metric to help us. So as we learned more about NPS and what it truly meant to have a robust Net Promoter system, we realized that in order for us to achieve our goals, we also needed to create a way to close the loop. This would allow us to not only ask the customer about the issue that caused them to be a detractor in the first place, but also understand why, so we could determine the root cause and then make changes operationally to avoid similar issues from happening in the future.
And just a little background on iModerate. We've really been on a mission to help companies get closer to and strengthen their relationships with consumers. So over the last decade, we've worked with several different Fortune 500 companies, conducting over 200,000 one-on-one conversations with consumers, really digging into how they think, feel, and behave. And we pride ourselves here at really empowering our clients to get beyond just data sets and numbers and provide them a richer, deeper understanding of consumers. And specifically with Reliant, we've been partnering with them now for over 3 years. tackling anything from broader innovation initiatives to refining new products to understanding drivers of customer churn. And as we've said, we're going to be really focusing today on how we help them dig deeper into their Net Promoter Score to understand and improve that ever so important customer experience. But before we dig into the case study, I want to first talk a little bit about our Emerge Analytics solution at a high level, since this is really the foundation on which these learnings we're going to be talking about today are based. We created this product as a way for companies to really more easily and efficiently navigate that constant stream of consumer data coming their way, and most importantly, distill it very quickly into something meaningful and actionable. So, like Adriana said, we're able to pull in consumer comments from a variety of text-based sources, whether it be survey verbatims, call center transcripts, social media posts, and so on, and distill all of that data down into actionable findings. And our output goes beyond highlighting just keywords based on frequencies that you might be familiar with from other tools, and really goes further to give you that complete picture of the foundation behind and the relationship between key terms and themes, giving you the critical context into why what's happening is happening. And we do this all through our proprietary approach, combining both Luminoso, our text analytics tool, and our expert analysts. While traditional methods typically that you see out there consist of either one or the other, we've seen that with larger data sets, human coders can sometimes struggle with bias, incorrect classification, and fatigue, particularly as the data set gets larger. And while text analytics tools can quickly classify a large volume of responses, the output we've seen isn't necessarily informative on its own. We know that a human analyst is really critical to understanding those underlying relationships and nuance that we see, and most importantly, tying the analysis back to your business and your goals. So Emerge really combines the best of both text and human worlds to quickly bring a greater depth of understanding and context.
So I spoke briefly about the NPS program we put together at Reliant and our desire to create this closed-loop system. But I want to talk a little bit about why customer satisfaction and NPS are so important to us. Historically, we use CSAT as a measurement of performance. However, that term, customer satisfaction, made the metric seem like a marketing or call center thing, and we really needed something that resonated more broadly. What we liked about Net Promoter Score is that it's based on the question, how likely are you to recommend Reliant? The customer's response then categorizes them into three groups: promoters, passives, or detractors. That allows us to follow up with a question asking why they rated us a certain way. Why were you a promoter, or why were you unhappy? So we can really understand the issue. Also, NPS is something that our whole organization can get behind because it's been tested and benchmarked, so it's a very rigorous metric. Also, because it's based on recommending, it's a measure that everyone can appreciate, from sales to operations to human resources, rather than just those on the front line. So at Reliant, NPS is reported to management monthly, and management really wants to figure out how we can integrate this into our bonus structure. So it's very important to our company. When we decided to start measuring NPS, we set up a series of customer surveys touching the customer throughout the customer life cycle. So most of our customers are on a contract, much like you all may be with your cell phone. And because of this contract, our customers don't really think about us very often. Truly, the only time they think about us is when they get their bill or when something goes wrong. This means most of our customers tend to be passive. They don't love us and they don't hate us. But that's not what we want. We want more promoters and less detractors. So we really set out to understand these two groups. We kept surveying the customers and collecting lots of interesting data. However, we were finding that key metric, NPS, was very unstable. It was changing every month, and we could not explain the changes. It became very frustrating considering all the eyes on this number. So we kept asking why and kept digging into the verbatim comments, and we found some interesting nuggets here and there that provided a little bit of guidance, but we still had some problems. We really needed to understand why our NPS score kept shifting. Every month, we're combing through the verbatims in an effort to understand why the customer was a promoter or a detractor. But the comments we were finding were not quantifiable. So when we tried to go back to the operation side of the business, we could not prove that this random customer comment truly equated to a business case that they should invest resources in. Also, the sheer volume of the comments made for very slow analysis. It was a very manual process combing through the comments and trying to weave together a story. Also, we were getting our quantitative data real time, and we needed to be able to answer why from the customer just as quickly. And ultimately, we needed to close the loop. We have a group of cross-functional customer champions that were tasked with putting the customer first in their various departments. And the champions were eager to know what was going on behind the data so they could figure out the root cause and start making changes. These issues led us to reach out to iModerate and look for a solution.
So here at iModerate, we did some initial work with Reliant to help them test certain hypotheses about what could be driving this volatility that they were seeing in the NPS score. But as Adriana said, there were a lot of eyes within this on their organization, and they needed really better intelligence to help create those business cases for change. So we decided we needed a larger solution and decided to look at data from 4 separate surveys along the customer life cycle. And we pulled in those open-ended responses to why customers gave the likelihood to recommend score that they did. So these surveys include a welcome survey for new customers, which hits about 1 to 2 bill cycles into their contract, a retouch survey about 7 months or halfway through their contract, a customer care survey for any inbound customer service contact that they may have made, and then their ongoing brand equity tracking study. And then again, because Adriana said it was very important to understand these 2 specific segments, we sliced the data into promoters, so those with a score of 9 to 10, and detractors, a score of 0 to 6.
So we were asking why, before we started working with iModerate and having a hard time hearing the answer, but what iModerate was able to provide were these themes, and it allowed us to quantify the degree to which we had an issue. So we can now say, you know, is this just one consumer rumbling about something, or is this really a system-wide problem? We were also able to see how the themes are impacting detractors or promoters, getting us back to recreating those positive experiences and minimizing those negative experiences. And we now get this information very quickly, within a week of the month closing. And so we have it in time to understand any variance that we see in our NPS score that month. And then lastly, the customer champions have what they need in these themes to identify and support root causes. So as they go back into the organization and try to implement change, they're able to understand the issue and answer any questions they encounter. And this has really been key because we have a cross-functional group of champions from, you know, and they all have differing levels of comfort when it comes to understanding research, but the information is so clear and obvious that we have not had any issues with them sharing that more broadly. And iModerate has also helped us identify some reoccurring themes that we as an organization need to work on solving. So we found that rates are higher than expected, with expected being the key word. So prior to iModerate, we thought whenever a customer complained about the rate, it just meant that our rates weren't competitive. However, as we've learned more about what drives this issue, we see a lot of comments around expectations that were set up during the sales process. We also see detractors describing their experience with Reliant's customer service as being poor. As we dug into that, the feedback was that the agents couldn't provide the answers needed. So after some internal investigation, we realized that this is sometimes because the agents don't always have the right information. So for example, we offer incentives when a new customer signs up, but we don't give the agent the ability to track where that incentive is. So as a customer calls back and asks a simple question, where's my gift card? The agent has no way to help them. Also, our delivery fee is causing frustration. So as some background, customers in Texas can choose their electricity provider. However, they cannot choose the company that delivers that electricity. The delivery fee is simply a pass-through charge and something that we at Reliant have no control over. It's really kind of like tax. So we're learning that this is a major issue because it's rarely explained well to the customer when they sign up with us, so it seems unnecessary. A little more education as part of the sales process would eliminate so many of these comments. This is one area where we saw a lot of buzz in social media before we had the iModerate data, but we cannot make the business case to operations and sales for them to buy in. But now that we have the iModerate data, we're able to quantify how many customers this truly impacts, which has easily translated to a worthy business case in everyone's eyes. And then we learned that our renewal process is not as pleasant as our enrollment process. Because of the many government regulations around retail electricity, renewal has historically been treated very tactically and like a contract negotiation, as opposed to just a conversation with our customer. So this This slide is an example of the output we receive from iModerate every month, and this is what you see across the top is one of the big themes that was identified. Our detractors feel that Reliant prioritizes attracting new business over rewarding its current customers for their loyalty. And iModerate summarizes that, but if you look at the bottom left, you start to see some of the verbatim comments that really exemplify this issue. And these types of comments are very common in the utility industry. You can look on a social media site for a cable company or an electricity provider, because it's really no secret that utilities offer great deals to attract customers, but our loyalty programs leave something to be desired. So this complaint wasn't really new, but we needed to understand the issues behind this very common complaint. So this is another example of an output for the same theme. You know, the detractors feeling like Reliant prioritizes new business over current customers. So this slide shows what's really behind that theme, so kind of like the drivers of that feeling. And we see there's actually 6 drivers of this issue. So the plans we're offering during renewal, we're not offering the same plan that the customer's seeing on the website. They want to keep their same plan and we're offering them something new, or we're not matching a rate that they think they saw from a competitor, and then this whole ongoing negotiation process. So by looking at these various drivers, we're able to see that the customer is actually not always looking for a lower price per kilowatt hour, but often they're looking to feel valued, and they want Reliant to reward them for their loyalty. So in this case, with this theme, we realize that it's not as much about changing the way we do business, but sometimes just in reframing the conversation. Another interesting learning that we didn't anticipate is that we see similar themes among our detractors and our promoters. So what this has taught us is that customer service and operational excellence are truly dependent on each other. Often we see these as separate silos. So you develop a new product in your product development group. Then you pass that product to your sales team, and your salesman goes out and sells that to the customer. Then your customer experiences the product, maybe has a complaint and calls into customer service. However, analysis has shown us that the same issue or problem can lead to either a detractor or a promoter. So let's go back to that delivery fee issue. A customer gets their bill and sees this line item for this delivery fee, and they're very confused. Well, it was never mentioned to them as part of the sales process. So they see it as some sort of extra fee or scam that Reliant's trying to use to get more money out of them. They call the call center, and so even when the agent does a great job, they're helpful, they're knowledgeable, they explain what the delivery fee actually is, the customer leaves that phone call frustrated due to improperly set expectations. This is really hard to overcome, and it tends to create a detractor. On the other hand, when the sales force properly sets expectations and all the various line items of the bill are discussed, maybe the customer forgets, they see it, they call in, and so now when the call center agent reminds them, it's a much more pleasant experience with the call center agent, and the customer gets off the phone feeling like, okay, I like Reliant. So we've learned a lot about our company and how to use the comments from detractors to make changes to improve the customer experience. And this has also led us to some quick wins. We're able to set better expectations for incentives. So as we dug into that comment around customer service being poor, we found that our agents could not answer the questions around incentives because they didn't have the proper communications in place. So this was an easy fix because the information was actually available. It just had to be shared. And then we learned we needed to better define our delivery fees because customers don't know what it is or why it's on their bill every month. So really as an industry, we need to do a better job of standardizing this fee and what we're calling it. But at Reliant, we started to make changes by better explaining it in agent scripting and as part of the sales process. We want to make sure this information is transparent on our end, and it just requires consumer education because the fee is like tax. All companies charge it, but it's just being labeled inconsistently. Also, we want to work on the consistency of our sign-up experience across the different enrollment channels. So the iModerate research uncovered some inconsistencies across our enrollment channels, which are leading to the varied expectations. We were finding that customers who enrolled online were interpreting the information differently than those who enrolled with an agent. And that's not good. We need to make sure the enrollment experience is always the same. So we've put additional checks in place, and we've also identified the areas that cause the most confusion to ensure that customers are clear on those items before they make their purchase. And kind of a tangential learning has been around leadership engagement. As our customer champions started identifying root causes and trying to go back into their various teams and make changes, we found that leadership was not completely aligned. So we've created some common language and common goals at the highest levels of management to ensure that the customer champions have the support they need as they strive to make changes in the organization. So moving forward, there's a few things that we're going to do to get even more out of the iModerate data. We want to understand the customer journey with group analysis. So we focused a lot on detractors versus promoters as a whole. Now we want to break that down across the customer life cycle and see how customer perceptions evolve and hopefully improve the longer a customer is with us. We want to monitor emerging trends. We'll continue to look for breakdowns like the example where we found that some of the main themes in the detractor audience were bubbling up with the promoters as well, kind of indicating more of those systematic issues. And then we also want to amplify the positive. So we focus a lot on detractors, and we want to focus more on promoters and recreating the positive experiences as opposed to just fixing the bad experiences. And then dig deeper and investigate more topics of interest with in-depth qualitative conversations. So our customer champions are coming up with lots of great ideas and possible solutions to fix the issues that we're uncovering every month. But we want to take those ideas back to the customer and make sure the solution actually solves the problem before we start to make major operational investments. So I've talked a lot about the ways, the different value we've gotten from iModerate, but just to summarize, we've been able to gain alignment across our organization and really understand what's behind our Net Promoter Score shifts and how they've been going up and down. So prior to understanding NPS through Emerge, every team latched on to what they thought was important and fit with their own point of view. But now there's less hypothesizing in silos and a lot more momentum towards a common goal. The teams work collectively to fix issues one at a time, and we're really able to get focused. Also, we found these points of breakdown. So tightening up the conversation and process between the sales and the service team so that expectations are both properly set and managed, leading to higher customer satisfaction. And then identifying trends and mitigating risk. We're able to see smaller themes bubble up early and nip them in the bud before they become a major systematic issue. And then root cause identification. We've been able to parse through all these customer comments and understand what the true issue is behind the consumer frustration so we can make operational changes and stop the issue from happening again.
Great. And as we just heard from Adriana, Emerge can help add tremendous value when looking to understand movement in KPIs, whether it be Net Promoter Score, like we just talked about, satisfaction, or another key metric that's important to your business. But we're also using Emerge in a variety of other ways with our clients, ranging from the highly tactical to the more exploratory or discovery. So for instance, inspiring new product innovation or optimizing existing products and services, or understanding consumer and not corporate language in order to optimize research or marketing initiatives, or even getting quickly grounded in a new topic, whether it be a business entering a new category or trying to learn about a new segment. So these are just some of the ways that we're using Emerge today to help our clients get closer to consumers. Hopefully we've sparked some ideas, and with that I would like to open it up for questions.
That's great. Fantastic job, guys. This is really, really interesting stuff, and we definitely have time for questions, and I encourage folks to submit them. I'm seeing them come in already, so that's great. And just one quick note, too, before you leave, when you sign off, if you wouldn't mind giving a rating, that's always helpful as well. So here's a couple of questions right off the bat. So first of all, when it comes to text analytics solutions, you mentioned that you use Luminoso. Why did you choose that over, the other solutions that are available?
Sure. Well, we did an exhaustive search of tools, of course, in kind of vetting this, and we really chose Luminoso for a number of reasons. I think some of the strongest ones being their ability for unsupervised clustering, which is just a fancy way of saying that when you take a very large data set, you don't need to know what you're looking for. So it automatically comes back and tells you the most relevant themes and terms being used in that. You don't need to build out, complex queries or taxonomies that you might have to with other tools. We also see, like Adriana talked about with the different surveys and moving forward with a different life cycle, we can implement different tags. So we can slice and dice the data based on, different demographics, psychographics, so we can really hone in on specific segments or whatever those classifications are. And it also really learns as it goes. So it gets better with the larger data sets that you use and really gets smarter at kind of picking up that nuance and that context that exists. So those are some of the key reasons.
Great, great. Here's kind of a technical question that came in regarding scaling. So I'll just read it. It says, scaling is very important. Can you talk about the question and scale that you use? For example, would you recommend, or personally, the question asker has used a standard 9-point Likert scale with each point anchored to a text, such as definitely yes to definitely no, with 5 being neutral. So just a question about what kind of scale you used and why.
So we chose to use the kind of standard Reichheld scale for likelihood to recommend using a 0 to 10, with the neutral point being anchored and the 1 being not at all likely and the 10 being extremely likely. So kind of the standard scale, and we chose that because we wanted to implement a more traditional Net Promoter System and be able to leverage some of the benchmarks and things that had already been kind of proven in the industry based off of that Reichheld scale.
Okay, great. There's another question. Did you use a tool or template for the journey mapping?
So I think you're talking about the customer journey mapping that we did at Reliant prior to developing the different surveys. That was like a major project that happened. We didn't use a template. We kind of just went into all of our customer touch points and tried to understand, based on how our business was set up, what was our customer journey. So it was customized to our business. I mean, I think there's some standard things that we know. We knew that we reached out at welcome. We knew that we reach out every month for the bill, but then there's lots of different things that we do to try to customize the customer experience, and that was how we came up with our own journey map.
Okay, and I think it's possible they might have been referring, I think you did mention towards the end that you've done some journey mapping in terms of people moving from detractor to promoter. Is that true or not?
Oh, so that is one of the things that we want to start doing this year. So
I gotcha.
As we expand this program, we want to understand what it takes to move customers from detractor up to promoter. And we'll start to look at that across the journey, as opposed to, up to this point, we've looked at them very separately as 2 different groups.
Gotcha. Now, here's a question regarding detractors. And the question is, what are some ways that you found to right that wrong in terms of hoping to create a better relationship? Do you have any history or data that shows your ability to move a detractor to promoter and what's been useful in that?
So quantitatively, we don't have that data yet. We're looking for that. I talked about the quick wins, and so we've been able to shift some of the conversations. And so specifically in the call center, we've been able to see how, by providing additional resources and scripting for our agents, a conversation that might have gone one way is now ending a different way. And so it's still directional at this point, but we're starting to see really good indication that it's hopefully going to move in the right direction for our total customer base.
Okay. There's a question around, how you use the Net Promoter Score to, you mentioned benchmarking. Do you compare your score to other utilities in the energy industry? And if so, what would be your source for knowing those?
Yeah, so we do a brand equity survey, and that's one of the data sets we look at. But that brand equity survey is market-wide in all of Texas markets. So we look at all of the key competitors in Texas and we do talk to their customers. It's kind of an unbranded study that we pay for, and we're able to understand our key competitors' Net Promoter Score as well. And so that's how we use, so we're kind of using that as our in-market benchmark.
Okay, great. We have several more questions to go through, and this is great. This is great conversation. One thing for folks who may have come in late, the entire webcast will be archived and available to access and go through on demand probably about 5 minutes after we close up, and it's going to be available at brandmanagecamp.com/webcasts. So if you go to our webpage and go to the webcast page, you'll be able to access this on demand and hear the audio, see all the slides. So if you missed any of it, it'll all be available shortly after we close up. Let's see here. Next question would be, one attendee noticed that the use of surveys was the primary research tool in obtaining the feedback from both detractors and promoters. Were there other methods used, such as qualitative tools, focus groups, interviews? I would even add in social media or anything like that, or is it all based off of the surveys?
So, we've been playing with some of that. We have talked a little bit about including social media. We did include some one-on-one interview comments in some of the earlier data sets. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so we initially launched this project with doing in-depth interviews qualitatively, and then kind of built it out into these surveys. And like Adriana said, we're looking at incorporating other data sets for the kind of future of the program.
One reason why we started with the surveys is because we wanted to be able to link it back to our customer database. And so with our surveys, we know whose account it is. We can go back and understand, kind of from a big picture, a customer complained about this, what was actually happening behaviorally, what was their bill amount, or just different things that we know about our customer. So we wanted to really limit this project in the beginning to that kind of information because we wanted to make sure we can go back and look at our customers and dive a little bit deeper with the tools that we had in place as well.
So the surveys were not done anonymously. They were actually, customers were tying it to their actual identifiable information, and they were comfortable with that.
Yes, all except for the brand tracking survey, which is done anonymously. But the life cycle surveys were done as, we're checking in as your electricity provider, trying to find out how things are going.
Here's okay, great. Here's a more kind of technical research question. How many customers get the NPS question for each calculation? So is it monthly or something like that? And how many people get it? And what would be, kind of the margin of error, considering the number has been bouncing around quite a bit?
So on the quantitative, we probably have thousands per month that get the question. And the margin of error, we use about a 90% confidence interval. So some months the number was bouncing and it wasn't significant. But again, because so many eyes were on this, even though we're explaining to management, it's 5 points, but it's not significant, management's like, but it's 5 points, So we really needed to, that was just really led to, we need to be able to understand this better and at least give them some sort of directional indication as to why it might be changing. But some of the bouncing was not statistically significant at that 90% confidence interval, but it was still causing concern.
Okay. Now, here's a question. Maybe the first part you may not be comfortable answering, but the second part may. So the question is, what is your Net Promoter Score, and how has that changed since you've been using this data and using this tool?
So I won't say exactly what our Net Promoter Score is, but it's let me answer it this way. In our industry, we found that the Net Promoter Scores tend to be lower. So they're in the 0 to 25 range for all of the various competitors, whereas the ones you typically see published by an Amazon or a Google are a lot higher than that. So that was the first thing when we kind of presenting these numbers. They're a lot lower than what our management's used to seeing when they're reading different articles. But we have seen it trend upwards. It's still jumping around a bit, but since we started tracking it about 18 months to 2 years ago, we are seeing it move in the right direction. And it still is moving seasonally, though, which is just kind of the nature of our business.
Cool. You mentioned that one of the things you're looking to do or have been doing is focusing on promoting some of the positives in an effort to reduce detractors and increase promoters. Do you have any examples of that, or is that something that you're just currently looking at doing?
Yeah, we're looking into focusing on the positives. We've really just spent a lot of time digging into the detractors and trying to figure out what we could do to fix them. But, I know one of the things that we've kind of tossed around is this idea around the customers that do feel valued, how can we duplicate that? So the ones who are saying they feel like Reliant appreciates them and their loyalty, we want to see how we can duplicate that experience, because that's something that we hear the exact opposite on the detractor side.
Have you, one of the things that people picked up on is you mentioned this idea of a loyalty effect. And the question is, can you explain more about exactly what you consider the loyalty effect and what that impact is?
From the book, the quote we mentioned early on, just kind of talking about the loyalty effect. So I just think that idea is, as you reward positive behavior or reward positive experiences and continue with those positive experiences, you start to see the customer want to stay with you longer. One thing that we think about as well as, and I don't have the exact quote memorized, but we know that customers who are promoters, when they refer, they tend to refer customers who look more like them and act more like them. So meaning they're referring promoters. And so you start to get this compounded effect.
Okay, great. So one of the questions here is, you've talked about that you've seen, a trend upward in terms of your Net Promoter Score over the 18 months to 2 years you've been doing this. To date, have you been able to tie that to an increase in revenue and sales? Can you, even though we know that the data out there suggests that there is that linkage, can you see it in your own numbers that as you're trending upward in the NPS that you're seeing an effect on revenue?
I wouldn't say we're seeing an effect on revenue just yet. One of the things that's been hard, Reliant's a really big company, is making the operational changes, and we're learning that each group is really interconnected. So as we identify an issue as part of the sales process, sales can't make that change in a silo. We have to change it in three other departments in order for sales to make the change. But one area where we have seen it is with our call center cost. So we do the study with our call center. We're tracking NPS. We're understanding detractors and promoters. We have 4 call centers that we use to address consumer concerns. And we had 2 call centers that just seem to have lots and lots of detractors. So by going in and looking at the information and really targeting the training at those 2 sites and using case studies from the other 2 call centers, we've seen the number of detractors at those 2 call centers go down. So that's a good indication that it is working, because that's tangible data. There's shorter call times, not as many repeat calls at those call centers, so all of that turns into dollars for us.
Great. All of the surveys, how are they delivered? Are they through email? Are they web links? Are they over the phone?
They're all email to our customers with the email address we have on file for them.
Okay. There's one of the attendees here that also does customer surveys to gain their Net Promoter Score, but they're only doing it once a year, and they're doing it to a small subset of their customers. They what they got from your case study is that this is an ongoing effort throughout the year, and they were hoping that maybe you could talk a little bit about the advantages of the frequency of the data that you're getting, and the potential downside of fatiguing the customer base.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why we wanted to do this ongoing is because, as we suspected, our business is very seasonal, and so our NPS score, we've clearly seen peaks at certain times and drops at certain times based on what's going on with kind of our market. So that was our case for wanting to do it over time. What if we did it one time and we picked the wrong time of year when it was the lowest, or picked the wrong time of the year when it was the highest based on the natural cycles? So that was our case for why it needed to constantly be in field. To balance customer fatigue, we have some stops in place. So if a customer takes the call center survey, we will not turn around and send them another survey within 60 days. Also, because it's across the life cycle, we feel like it's kind of spread out. So when you first come to a company, you're expecting them to kind of check in with you. And so that's that first survey. And then we don't really bother them again for another 6 months unless they contact us. And then it's just more of a follow-up. You contacted us. So we haven't had too much of an issue with customer fatigue. But again, because we have a pretty large database as well, we're not really hitting the same customer really more than once or twice a year.
And so how often is the information analyzed through the Emerge system? Is it monthly? And is it all automated? And then what is the time lag for the analysis that you get from the data?
Sure. So we analyze the data monthly. Once the data closes, it takes us about a week to turn around a full report with several different themes by both promoters and detractors.
Okay, so really quickly.
Yeah, so really quickly. The tool is really efficient, and again, it gets smarter with the more data you put into it. And then we have our in-house team of analysts that go through it and, like I talked about before, really understanding those sort of nuances and building out that larger story.
Okay. And it looks like this might be the last question we have. We still have a little bit of time. If anybody has, here came a couple more. I lied. Okay. So how have you found it in terms of influencing sales and their conversations with the customers? Have they been receptive? Has that been a learning process? How has that gone?
No, they've definitely been receptive. I think, sometimes when you look at social media, you kind of look at that and say, those are people who are just complaining, or it's always just the loudest person who wants to cause a fuss. They just want something for free. And so that information can sometimes be dismissed. But with this data now, it being rigorous and us being able to say, well, this is 60% of the comments and concerns, the sales team has been very receptive, and we're also able to pull out comments where they're mentioned, the salesperson, blah, blah, blah. So being able to really see the customer's voice, I think they can't help but to receive the information and take it and start to try to impact changes. And one of the things that management's actually decided that we're going to try to implement over the next year is start to include this into some of their scorecards. So instead of, NPS only being something that we look at from a company-wide perspective, maybe sales has it as a small component of their scorecard just so it can stay top of mind with them.
Right. What do you find to be the typical response rate or open rate for the surveys, and do you find at all that that the type of people who answer the surveys create any sort of bias, or detractors or promoters more likely to answer than passives?
So we actually have more passives than anything. Just again, because of the nature of our business, I think people just are slightly unengaged. But I think because of how we do it with the life cycles, I don't feel like we have too much bias. Our survey take rates are the industry standard. Some surveys we see higher. So, for example, the call center survey tends to be a little bit higher because you're getting that within 24 hours of calling. So the experience is very top of mind. You're like, oh, yeah, let me answer this. Whereas our retouch survey, which is 6 months in, doesn't have as high of a take rate, but it's still right there with industry average.
Okay. And in terms of the sample for your surveys, I mean, you're doing a mix of previous respondents, new customers, I mean, is it go across the mix, or do you try and focus on any specific elements?
We only focus on the time their tenure with us, because that's how we decided we were going to set it up based on our journey map and our life cycle. We felt like tenure is the biggest indicator of experience and satisfaction. So the only thing we pull for is tenure. So if they've been with us for 2 months, they get the welcome survey. 6 months, they get the retouch.
Okay. Well, this has been fantastic. I mean, we've had a ton of questions, and you know, I encourage you know, folks to, if you have more questions, what would be the best way for them to funnel more questions to you if they have them?
Yeah. Do we have another slide with contact info up? No. Okay. Well, they can just shoot off an email to us at iModerate. My email is lwall@iModerate.com. So again, that's lwall for Lisa Wall, and we'll make sure that questions for Adriana get funneled appropriately to her, and handle any questions that we can help answer.
Well, clearly this is a hot topic for folks. We had over 250 people register for this webcast, and usually, as you know, what we normally see is about 50% of folks show up live, and the rest of the folks watch it later. But we've had almost about 180 folks who have been watching this live. So this is it's a hot topic for folks. People are very, very engaged on it. I hope this has been useful. I really appreciate. I know it's been useful for me. I really appreciate the time and effort that's been put into this by Adriana and Lisa and the folks at iModerate and Reliant. And I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I want to thank you for your time, and we'll see you at the next webcast, and hopefully we'll see you all at Brand Manage Camp.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.